Draft nerds, welcome in. Today we're talking about the offensive tackle class in the 2025 NFL draft just a little bit. Not full scouting reports on these players, but kind of just a big picture look at where I am with this class. There's obviously a lot of prospects, if you've been paying any attention, that currently play tackle that probably project best inside or as flex players that you kind of figure out where you want to plug them in at the next level, depending on your scheme and their development tracks. So there's a lot that goes into this, and comparing this offensive tackle class to last year's offensive tackle class, it is night and day. Last year was something pretty special. I don't think you're seeing that this year. I really don't. But there are a lot of interesting prospects. There's guys I think are going to play a long time, whether that's at tackle or guard. We'll talk about it here. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. Let me know what you think about this tackle class in the comment section below. So we got to kick it off with the guys that have been most commonly talked about as top 10 type prospects, top of the draft prospects. It's Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks. And going back to summer scouting, those were the guys at the top. I felt really good about those two guys in summer scouting. I didn't see development from either guy. And in fact, I saw some things that worried me maybe even more in 2024 than they did in 2023 because you didn't see improvement in certain areas from both players. Will Campbell is never going to be the most elite athlete at tackle. He's not going to have great length. And for me, the issue with length gets compounded by the fact that you don't have the quick mirroring feet. He's not a guy that can really stick with these speed edge rushers with length when they try to threaten the top of the arc, get around the arc, and then flash back across his face. He just cannot redirect that way. And because his feet aren't super quick and because he doesn't have great length, that is a compounding issue in that regard. And you see it consistently on tape. So that's a little bit of a struggle for me with Will Campbell. Do I think that those issues can be mitigated inside, where you'll see his athleticism look a lot more like above average to very good athleticism versus mediocre athleticism at tackle? He'd be a good athlete at guard. He'd have fine length at guard. Great power on the interior at 320 pounds. He's got great grip strength, physicality. He moves well as a puller, right? He's fairly explosive. So I think Will Campbell is a guard or a center at the next level, not a tackle. Could you play him at tackle and get maybe a average to above average starter? I think so. I would much rather draft him to play guard and get somebody who can potentially be a Pro Bowler, right? Kelvin Banks, I have a lot of issues with right now. The balance scares me. It really does. The last player I really fell for in the draft that had balance issues, that was a kind of a bigger guy, and he was even bigger than Banks by quite a wide margin, but Evan Neal. These guys that kind of lean on defenders, they don't have great length. Evan Neal had good length, but Kelvin Banks doesn't have great length. He leans on defenders. He gets his shoulders way out in front of his feet, and he just falls off blocks consistently. When you play that way, guys can snatch you and get around you. When you play that way, you fall off blocks, both in the pass game and the run game, and it worries me. So for Kelvin Banks, I don't know if he's a tackle or a guard. I think he's got a long way to go either way. I think he's going to have issues jumping into the NFL game. I really do. So another guy that a lot of folks talk about because he was like pretty much perfect from a statistical standpoint this year at West Virginia is Wyatt Milum. I watch him and he is absolutely not a tackle at the NFL level. He does not have the athleticism or length for it. And quite frankly, I don't think he has the balance for it. He's got to be kicked inside to get the best out of him. There's no two ways about it. So that's three guys right there that play tackle that, either need to kick inside or I just have severe questions about with Kelvin Banks. So is there anyone who I do have confidence in as a tackle? Honestly, there's two guys that I feel really good about at tackle. One of them is coming off of a season-ending knee injury, and that is Josh Simmons, Ohio State tackle, left tackle. He's got all the prototypical traits I'm looking for: the nimbleness, the foot quickness, the redirectability, the length. He's got great strength throughout his frame as well. I don't think he's elite in terms of his hand placement, although I think he's very good. Just needs to develop a tad bit more consistency, but I think he can drive you off the ball. I think he can get out in space and make impact against linebackers and safeties at the second level. And so there's just so much about Josh Simmons' game that I like. He was going to be my OT1. I think he still is going to be, but coming off the knee. So when's he going to be ready? Not sure. And the other one, it's Armand Membou. And there is one question I have about his game, but he's only 20 years old. So that's something to keep in mind. He's only 20 years old. His anchor, when handling these guys that can convert speed to power at a high level who are like 280 plus pounds, which I know that isn't that common, but in this draft class, it is fairly common. You've seen him go against some of these guys, done mostly a good job, but there's been times where I think if he can't get hands in the right spot, guys are able to drive him into the quarterback's lap. And you've seen that with LT Overton. You've seen that with Nick Scorton and Shamar Stewart both had a rep or two where you kind of saw that. But Armand Membou out of Missouri, there are so many great traits that he brings to the field. I think he's a very good athlete. I do think he has strength. So the anchor is less about strength and maybe more about just being able to feel that and get your feet planted in the ground and being able to do that little hop steps if you need to, whatever it may be. Maybe adding some more functional strength. But I think Armand Membou, I have confidence in him as a tackle. I have a lot of confidence that he could have potentially 5-position flex as well. I do. And there's one other player who I also think has 5-position flex that I'm excited about as a tackle. But to say there aren't questions would be folly, and that's Marcus Mbow out of Purdue. He's not the biggest. He doesn't have the most sand in his pants. He's not the strongest guy. And he's so overly aggressive in his sets sometimes and how he's trying to get after edge players that his aggressiveness comes back to bite him a little bit. So I think if he just played more in control, Marcus Mbow has the chance with his athleticism and his developing hands, which he shows snatch traps on the move. He shows them, vertical sets. He shows independent hand usage. He shows two-hand punch it. Like, he's got a lot in his bag. It's just about knowing when to dial these things up and when to just kind of let the rush come to you a little bit more and handle it with your athleticism and quickness and foot speed and movement. So I'm excited about Marcus Mbow, but I have questions. Josh Connerly. Outside of Josh Simmons, he's the one that looks the most like a prototypical NFL left tackle. He still needs to develop functional strength, in my opinion, in a big way. And there's just too many mental lapses with either his hands or not seeing it properly in pass protection. Overall, it's pretty darn good with Josh Connerly in pass pro. And I think he's a better run blocker right now than a lot of people give him credit for. But there's still some serious development needed in the consistency department with Josh Connerly out of Oregon. But he's got the length. He's got the quick feet, the overall athletic package, the ability to mirror movements and to latch on to guys, stay latched on. When guys are trying to, hit counters on him, he's able to stick with them really well. So Connerly has the upside to be a top 10 tackle in the league. I also think there's the chance that he needs some time to develop, and it'll take a little bit for him to be a functional starter. Cameron Williams, he is a behemoth, over 330 pounds, 6'5", has a long way to go from a technical standpoint, from the mental side of the game, playing right tackle for Texas right now. This is a guy that has a lot of physical traits you can get excited about, and he is a great athlete at his size. But I've seen the comparison to Amarius Mims, which, injuries notwithstanding, Amarius Mims was just light years ahead of Cameron Williams as a prospect, as an athlete and from a technical standpoint, both in pass protection and the run game. Now, Cameron Williams has unbelievable power. He can knock you into tomorrow, but there's a long way to go, both in pass pro and as a run blocker. And he gets, kind of like Kelvin Banks, he gets way out over his toes and doesn't have great balance. So, I mean, both of those guys, I'm a little worried about the projection. Ariante Ursary is an interesting one. Out of Minnesota, the left tackle. I think that he has the ability to be a functional NFL starter at left tackle. He's got size, he's got length. I think he's got enough power, and he's explosive in a straight line. I just don't see much bend, reactionary quickness. I don't think he's going to be great when it comes to mirroring movements or anything like that. But I think with his, again, linear explosiveness, length, strength, and overall size profile, Ariante Ursary, I think, projects as a starter. Don't think he's going to be a upper echelon starter at the next level, but projects to be someone who can start in the NFL for a long time. But I do think technically still got some things to refine there with his hand placement and just mirroring his feet with his hands, getting all that married up. So not a perfect prospect by any stretch of the imagination. I think Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State has 5-position flex as well. He's a really good athlete. He's got bend. He plays left tackle for them. I think he could play tackle. I think he might be best suited inside. So a lot of guys I like, and I see the path forward, but there's question marks. More question marks than answers for a lot of the players, and a lot of guys that I think probably are better suited inside. But if you're looking for a left tackle, long-term starter, Pro Bowl potential, I think it's Josh Simmons. If you're looking for somebody beyond Josh Simmons, I think you're talking about Josh Connerly, Armand Membu. I think that they both have question marks. Connerly has more of the prototypical traits you're looking for in a tackle. Membu, I think, I don't think Connerly can play guard or obviously bump inside to center. But I think Membu, if Membu struggles a little bit at tackle, I think you could probably play him anywhere and get it figured out long term. And again, he's only 20 years old. So that's my look at this tackle class. Would love to know what y'all think. Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. Again, if you enjoy the content, please consider liking and subscribing. Y'all have a good one.